impossible to accept any justification for what Hamas did, and I certainly join in the condemnation of the terrorist act. The one agreed solution for the last 25 years has been clear and uncontroversial, which is there must be two states living side by side behind secure and defensible borders. We want both Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace and dignity. It is a situation that can easily spiral out of control. Hezbollah in Lebanon is also Iranian-backed, as is Hamas in Gaza. Well, look, first of all, the entire situation has been provoked by the surprise attack by Hamas during a national holiday in Israel, and it was done, I'm afraid, in the cruelest possible way. It was a terror operation. They killed innocent civilians, children, elderly people, youth attending a music festival. It really was impossible to accept any justification for what Hamas did, and I certainly join in the condemnation of the terrorist act. That's my strong personal view, and I think many of us feel this way. At the same time, while we understood the Prime Minister's standing up for Israel, showing solidarity at this time of great grief and this horror that has been visited upon them, at the same time we felt that his statement was incomplete, because we felt that at the same time we needed to remember that there was a larger issue at stake here, and the reason behind all of this, which is that there is a dehumanizing occupation continuing in many places. The people of Gaza have felt imprisoned in that strip for a long time. The people of the West Bank have a wall which is interfering with their normal freedom of movement and conditions of life. It's a difficult situation for the Palestinians, especially since settlement building, construction of new homes for Jewish settlers in the occupied territories has been continuing unabated all these years. And therefore, the grand bargain under which the PLO gave up the way of the gun and chose the way of peace and dialogue, and the world was heading towards a two-state solution, that has essentially been completely stagnant. For the last 2.5 decades, there's been no progress on that. And Israel has had, under Prime Minister Netanyahu, a very tough government that has made not only no compromise towards the Palestinians, but has also been continuing what the world considers illegal settlements in the occupied territories. Now, this is a context, and I say this only because for us in the Congress Party, and traditionally for India, the position is very clear. We want both Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace and dignity behind secure borders and conditions where neither has to fear for their lives at any time. Today, Israelis are fearing for their lives and Palestinians are fearing for their lives. The death toll on both sides is mounting every day. And that, to my mind, is certainly not something that India welcomes in any shape or form. We want to see this matter halt and peace be restored. I would simply say that from the perspective of the international community, the one agreed solution for the last 25 years has been clear and uncontroversial, which is there must be two states living side by side behind secure and defensible borders. And there should be some international guarantees to make sure that one doesn't attack the other. Obviously, this requires moderate leadership on both sides. And it's been part of the tragedy of this area that when there were moderate leaders in the Palestinian side, like Mahmoud Abbas, who were actually willing to make peace, on the other side you had some hawkish leaders like Netanyahu who didn't want to give up settlements and who had coalition partners who were even more hawkish than he was. And when the Israelis have had moderate leaders, there hasn't been a willingness on the other side. So we've had unfortunately, some setbacks to this idea. But this is the only viable solution. Because if you want to create one state that is a pure democracy, then the whole idea of the Jewish democratic state ceases to exist. And many, many people in Israel will never accept that. They want to continue to be a Jewish and a democracy. A Jewish state that is also a democracy. But they won't be that if they're going to have one state where they are essentially conducting an apartheid regime against the Palestinian people. So the best thing is two separate states. Let the Palestinians run their own affairs. Let the Israelis run their own affairs. And let us make sure there are some international guarantees that this doesn't erupt into further violence. And there are stories of Hezbollah from Lebanon firing rockets into Israel.
So how do you see the global implications?
It's very worrying. There's no question about that. The global situation is genuinely worrying because you're looking at a problem which could keep expanding. For example, the Americans have sent their largest aircraft carrier off the coast of Gaza. Now imagine a situation where Iran feels provoked to intervene. Of course, the Iranians have said, Ayatollah Khamenei has said that Iran had nothing to do with this and we will have to take his word for it. But it is a situation that could easily spiral out of control. Hezbollah in Lebanon is also Iranian-backed, as is Hamas in Gaza. If they both start entering the war and Israel is fighting on both fronts and Israel calls for help and supplies from America and other Western allies, you could find a very rapid escalation taking place. It might even imperil the very constructive efforts towards normalization and peace that were being undertaken with the Arab countries and Israel. As you know, India is a member of the I2U2, which is India, Israel, US, UAE. An Arab country, a Jewish country, and two sort of pluralistic democracies working with them together. Wonderful concept. Is that going to be threatened? Saudi Arabia and Israel were actually talking about normalization. They were very close to it, it is rumored. Perhaps even Hamas's timing was triggered by the fact that they wanted to prevent this happening. But whatever it may be, we were seeing a direction towards peace and amity in the region, and that could have enabled everyone to focus on development and growth and prosperity rather than on war. And now suddenly we are all talking about the risk of not only war there, but war in a wider sense. Never forget that in 1948, the United Nations resolution created two states. Only one state exists, Israel. The Palestinian state has never really come into being. Yes, we now recognize the Palestinian Authority as a sort of state, but it's a state without full control of its territory, with no army, no control of its borders, no full sovereignty in the sense that the Israelis enjoy. And I think we should really have to work to that ultimate solution.